Back in the late 90s, gaming was owned by the Sony PlayStation, and with that success came one studio that helped push the console to legendary status: Naughty Dog. This was the team that went head-to-head with gaming giants like Nintendo and Sega by introducing their own mascot in Crash Bandicoot. Around this time, Naughty Dog delivered a trilogy that felt truly unmatched and became a symbol of the era. But while Crash was a massive success, Naughty Dog eventually grew tired of making Crash Bandicoot games, and a strained relationship with Universal Interactive, paired with a strong desire to move on to new ideas, pushed the studio towards something new. So while finishing up their final Crash title, Crash Team Racing, Naughty Dog was already hard at work behind the scenes on a brand new IP, one that would define the next generation of gaming. If the PlayStation had Crash, then PlayStation 2 would have Jak, a high-energy platformer with a fresh take on the genre. Jak and Daxter wasn't just a new mascot, it was a statement, a clear sign that Naughty Dog was ready to evolve. Welcome to episode 5 of the Naughty Dog Takeover. Today we're collecting Precursor orbs with Jak and Daxter, the Precursor Legacy.
Okay, watch and learn.
Oh, I'm learning all right.
Ellie, stay up, come on! What? Is that it?
You asked for it.
To all my returning viewers, welcome back. And to anyone new here, welcome to the channel. I'm the Retro Phantom, and every week I cover video games that help shape our childhoods and define entire eras. Right now, we're deep into the second franchise of the Naughty Dog Takeover. Last month we covered the full Crash Bandicoot series, so if you want to stay up to date on this journey, feel free to check out those retrospectives as well. And as we keep moving forward, if you enjoyed this video and you want to stay locked in, hitting that subscribe button goes a long way. We're closing in on 10,000 subs, a goal that I had set last year. But it's all good, because this year I'm aiming for 15,000, and I'd love for you to be a part of that journey. The best way to support the channel is by liking and hyping the video. It really helps smaller creators like me expand in YouTube's algorithm. And if you're feeling extra generous, you can always buy me a cup of coffee. The link is in the description. With that said, let's dive into this. Okay, if this is not your first Naughty Dog video, feel free to advance past this recap. I'll give you a moment to do that now. As we covered throughout the Naughty Dog Takeover, the studio's journey begins in 1982 when two kids at a weekend Hebrew school, Andy Gavin and Jason Rubin, bonded over their shared obsession with computers and video games. From the start, their partnership was perfectly balanced. Gavin focused on programming, Rubin handled the art, and together they learned game development the hard way, without tutorials, without the internet, and without a safety net or even AI. Early titles like Math Jam, Ski Craze, and Dream Zone weren't commercial hits, but they laid the foundation for what was to come. Their first major industry break came through Electronic Arts, where the duo officially adopted the name Naughty Dog and released Keith the Thief in Rings of Power. While those games performed well, publisher control and hardware limitations pushed the team to walk away. But everything changed when CD-based gaming was invented. After developing Way of the Warrior, Naughty Dog caught the attention of Universal Interactive and relocated to California. During that transition, a joke pitch, Sonic's ass, evolved into a fully realized character, Crash Bandicoot. Released in '96, Crash Bandicoot became one of the defining titles of the original PlayStation era, pushing Sony's hardware further than most American-developed games at that time could even reach. The success of Crash Bandicoot 2 and Warp solidified Naughty Dog as one of the most technically impressive studios of that generation.
Nintendo's got Mario. Sega has Sonic. Now, the cornerstone character for the Sony PlayStation is Crash Bandicoot.
By the end of the PlayStation era, the Crash trilogy was complete. And with Crash Team Racing, Naughty Dog closed the chapter on their mascot and prepared to move forward. If you want more information, feel free to check out the Naughty Dog playlist for the full story.
Hey, plumber boy, mustache man, your worst nightmare has arrived.
Pack up your stuff.
I got a little surprise for you here. Check it out. What do you think about that? We got real-time, 3D, lush organic environments. How's that make you feel, buddy?
Feel a little like your days are numbered? I'm gonna have to ask you to leave.
You're hurting my elbow.
Is that Italian?
No, Bandicoot is an Australian name.
Now we can continue. First things first, we need to talk about Naughty Dog as a company. Now, in my last video, I spoke on Crash Team Racing being the last Naughty Dog Crash game. And there's a reason why, and understanding why it will help us in later retrospectives. While Crash had become synonymous with the original PlayStation, the character was never owned by the studio that created him. The IP belonged to Universal Interactive, meaning once Naughty Dog stepped away, Crash's future would be decided by publishers, not creators. And that decision came fast. As the industry moved towards the next generation of consoles, future Crash games were handed off to other studios. Eventually, through a chain of acquisitions, the franchise would land under Activision. What followed was a rapid decline. Without Naughty Dog's vision or technical leadership, Crash lost momentum almost overnight. Former developers have since been blunt about what went wrong. Universal, despite owning the franchise, never truly understood game development. To them, Crash was a revenue stream, something that generated income, not a character that needed careful evolution. Once Naughty Dog left, the franchise was stripped of its creative direction, mishandled, and pushed forward without a long-term plan. Crash didn't just fade, he fell from grace. This loss hit more than just Naughty Dog. Sony had poured marketing muscle into Crash, turning him to a de facto PlayStation mascot. Yet by the early 2000s, what had once been the PlayStation exclusive icon appeared on competing consoles. Sony's hands were tied. They didn't own the IP and neither did the studio that built it. For Ruben and Gavin, the lesson was painfully clear. They had created one of gaming's most recognizable mascots and had no control over his future. In the heat of all this, Naughty Dog will also make a game-changing decision. In January of 2001, Naughty Dog and its entire development team will be acquired by Sony. There was an enormous amount of stress behind making Crash games, and AAA games started blooming in prices. Due to the situation, selling off became the right decision for Naughty Dog. In a lengthy post on LinkedIn, Andy Gavin opened up about selling the company. Gavin explained that when Naughty Dog started in the 80s, game development was something you could actually self-fund. Early projects cost less than $50,000. Even Rings of Power in the early 90s reached around $100,000 and still turned a profit. That model worked until it didn't. Crash Bandicoot in the late 90s cost roughly $1.6 million to make. And remember, that was just for PlayStation games. With the next generation of gaming around the corner, game development would soar to 40 and 50 million. And for us looking at modern gaming, we see game development has soared hundreds of millions of dollars today. So Gavin saw something coming from afar, and Naughty Dog made the ultimate decision. He was almost prophetic in a way. In a post, he would say, "But back in 2000, we were still self-funding every project, and the stress of financing these ballooning budgets independently was enormous. It wasn't just us. This was a systemic issue in the AAA space. Developers almost never had the resources to fund their own games, which gives publishers enormous leverage. Selling to Sony wasn't about securing a financial future for Naughty Dog. It was about giving the studio the resources to keep making the best games possible without being crushed by the weight of skyrocketing costs and the paralyzing fear that one slip would ruin it all. Looking back, it was the right call. Even Jason Rubin didn't want to continue the Crash brand. In an interview, he stated, "We do what we do because we like it. We were getting bored with the Crash series, and that's why we ended with Crash Team Racing. We didn't want to make another Crash game. We were out of ideas. We didn't want to bring Crash to the next generation hardware because we would be handcuffed to whatever we had done before and whatever mistakes we had made with the Crash series. We had Aliens and Crash Team Racing. How were we going to work all of that out? The whole thing was just getting out of hand. There was nothing new we wanted to do with this. It's like skydivers. They don't just skydive once and say, 'Woo, that was hard, but I got through it. I'm never going to do it again.' You start to want that adrenaline rush, and it's great." Sony didn't buy Naughty Dog. They protected it. The deal removed financial risk, kept the studio creatively independent, and ensured that whatever Naughty Dog built next wouldn't suffer the same fate as Crash Bandicoot. Selling to the right party gave Naughty Dog the stability it needed to thrive and continue making the kinds of games players would love. That decision would define everything that followed. And now that we understand Naughty Dog, it's time to talk about Jak and Daxter. Now, if you recall from our last video, the last Naughty Dog game was Crash Team Racing. And while that game was under development, the engine for Jak and Daxter was also being developed on the side.
Jak was definitely self-directed. We had a 3-project deal with Universal, and that was ended up being Crash 1, Crash 2, and Crash 3. After Crash 3, we decided we were going to continue working with Universal. And we set off to make a racing game that at the time had block-headed characters with no personality in it. Took that racing game engine to Sony and said, "It'd be really nice if this was a Crash game. We don't want to work with Universal. You guys need to figure this out."
Wait, who said I want to make a bland driving game with no character?
We did.
That was you guys. Like,
let's do a racing game. Worst case scenario, we'll figure out new characters. Best case scenario, Sony will get the rights to Crash from Universal. That did happen. They got the rights. It was the right thing for everybody. That became Crash Team Racing. And while Crash Team Racing was being made, I was working on Crash Team Racing. Andy was working on the engine for this. Stephen White was working on the engine for this. He's one of our lead programmers. Mark Cerny was working on the engine with this. By that time, he had left Universal, and he was always a big part of Naughty Dog's, technical work, level design work, just in general, a big part of everything we did. So Mark was working on this, Steve White was working on this, Andy Gavin working on this. That was the 3 programmers that I knew and trusted best. We had new programmers that had just joined the company that did Crash Team Racing with me. They were fantastically talented, but a new group together making a game is always trouble, and 8 months, 6 days from the moment we got a green light on the project. So that was Crash Team Racing, and while that was happening, we were building an engine that we knew would be our new character action game. We wanted to make it open world. We wanted to do all these things. That was happening simultaneously, and eventually we showed that to Sony. Shu, of course. She said, "We want it, and we just don't want it to be like Crash. We don't want something that eventually will show up on a competitor's platform. We don't want to license it for a number of titles. We want it to be a permanent part of the Sony universe." And the thing that made the most sense was basically to join Sony and sell the company and
was that the year that
be
happened?
acquired. That was the
Before
year it
Jak,
happened.
like,
It was
right at that
all
point.
part of the same negotiation.
In September of 1999, Dieter Maleficent was hired as a programmer on what would eventually become Jak and Daxter, the Precursor Legacy. At the time, the project was still operating under codename Project Y, and progress moved fast. He later detailed these early days, saying, "I was hired in September 1999 and helped out a little bit on building up the very first tool pipeline for Project Y. We very quickly got our first level up and running. I moved on to try to figure out how geometry occlusion would be done in the game, which was a very difficult problem considering how much geometry we have. From the beginning, it was clear this wasn't going to be another Crash-style platformer. Inspiration for the characters came from animator Josh Shear, with influences pulled from classic Warner Bros. Cartoons like Looney Tunes and Tex Avery, alongside Disney films such as Aladdin and Tarzan, with even a hint of Pixar storytelling DNA. The goal was ambitious, to bring Disney quality animation into a fully realized cutscenes that could carry the game's story. But visuals were only a part of the plan. One of Naughty Dog's earliest design goals was to immerse players in a single cohesive world, rather than the clearly segmented levels we've seen in Crash Bandicoot. Levels would still exist, but they would be seamlessly connected, with no obvious boundaries and no load times between them. Players could see distant landmarks far across the world and travel to them uninterrupted. It was important to Naughty Dog that Jak's world made sense as a living place. The story needed to tie everything together and allow for character development without pulling focus away from the action. The world would be filled with highly animated characters that give Jak tasks, offered hints, revealed story elements, and injected humor. Puzzles and enemy design were also pushed further than anything the studio had done before. As development moved along, all eyes turned towards one moment: E3. The studio head Evan Wells spoke about the importance of the game's debut. Our goal was to make a big debut at the 2001 E3. We wanted to go into the show with the first village completely finished, and we made that a goal. And we just made that goal. Of course, in the grand scheme of a 3-year development cycle, E3 is really close to Christmas, and we felt the pressure as soon as the show was over. And when Jak and Daxter appeared at E3 2001, it showed out.
My name is Bob Raffi. I'm the art director at Naughty Dog, and behind me is Jak and Daxter, the Precursor Legacy. This game was created with the original team that did Crash Bandicoot, and it's our first project on the PlayStation 2. And this game is something that we're really excited about. It was developed for a year and a half. It's a non-linear gameplay, and you have various tasks to solve. And as you go forward, you see that there's a very involved story. We have in our world a lot of technology and mystery that has been left behind by the precursors who are somehow involved in the creation of this universe. Nobody really knows why it's there, but our main character, Jak, which is what the player controls, is special enough to be able to unlock these mysteries. It's got continuous worlds. There's 8 times of day change. There's no load time. At any given time, we're pushing anywhere from 20 to 50 times more polygons than you ever saw in Crash. And the sky's the limit with PlayStation 2. It really is unbelievable the amount of muscle we're getting out of the system. Jak and Daxter, Precursor Legacy. Look for it in stores this holiday season.
The following 6 months were a blur of script rewrites, engine overhauls, focus testing, and non-stop level building. With a team of roughly 35 developers, an enormous amount of progress was made in a short time. By the final 2 months of development, the game could finally be played from start to finish, a massive milestone. That was the moment when it all clicked. Later on, Jason Rubin will reflect on the scope and ambition behind the project.
For the last 18 months, we've been hearing lots of little whispers and rumors about this thing called Project Y. And we've finally got you over here, so you can reveal all. So tell us what it is.
Jak and Daxter, the Precursor Legacy, that's the name of the game. It's a mixture of a lot of different things. It's got a little Zelda in it, it's got a little Final Fantasy in it, it's got a lot of Mario in it, and it's definitely got its roots in Crash as well, although it's not a Crash game. It's definitely something new for us. And the people that have been playing it outside Naughty Dog say it's a very new experience because it's a lot more about the feeling and the exploration and not totally about collecting a certain number of this or collecting a certain number of that, which is what the Crash games were based on. We really have tried to take everything together and make a game that I think is truly new. It's something that people haven't played before.
How big a production is Jak and Daxter?
It's got a budget that is up there with movies, so it's really a very different thing for us. We have 34 people working for 2 years, and additionally programmers that were on the project a year before that. We have 5 guys now that are full-time animators that have come from companies like Disney and the like that have just been doing nothing but character animation. The gamer expects more. They've seen what we've given in the past, and they want that much more for around the same price.
Can you tell us a bit about the characters of Jak and Daxter?
The hero of the story is Jak. He's humanoid, but he's not human. He's got a destiny that will be revealed, maybe even not in this game, but sometime in the future. Daxter, the sidekick to the main character, has turned himself, by falling into a vat of dark eco, into a little fuzzy creature. And we go through the story trying to change him back. Jak and Daxter have a mentor called Samus the Sage. He has a daughter Kira, who's kind of a tinkerer and makes vehicles and machinery and stuff. We have evil twins, a brother and a sister, that are pretty diabolical.
So what kind of world do Jak and Daxter inhabit?
Well, Jak and Daxter, they live in a small village at the south end of the continent. And the entire world that's laid out for you is a no-load time walk from wherever you are to wherever you want to go. Eco is praised predominantly in the game. It's kind of a magical force that oozes out of the earth. There's multiple different colors, and each one has a sage attributed to it. But for some unknown reason, Jak has the ability to take this eco and actually use it for whatever its purpose is. Their precursors were a culture that lived before any of our characters remember in the world, and they've left ruins all over the place. And one of the ruins that they've left around are giant robots. And no one really knows what they were for or what they did, but a evil sister and evil brother resurrect one of these robots and is going to use it to open a vault of Dark Eco, unleashing the Dark Eco on the world. So you're out to stop the evil sister and brother from doing this.
Why would anyone want to pick up Jak and Daxter as opposed to anything else up on the shelves?
There's nothing really that I see on the horizon that competes with Jak and Daxter. For two reasons. One, the character action games, the free roaming, it takes a long time. It's quite hard to do, and we're trying to do something totally new, and I think not having the load times and being able to just completely immerse yourself in the world is something completely new. At the same time, you'll always have goals, you'll always have things that you need to do, and there is action in there, there are enemies to deal with. I also think graphically we're going to set a new standard, and people are going to want to play in a world that's really absolutely beautiful and extremely immersive. And I guarantee word of mouth is going to carry the game, so I have no fears. I really have no fears.
Millions of years ago, Crash Team Racing started off, I think, as Project X, and then for the last year, 2 years, we've been hearing about Project Y, which has now been revealed. So when can we expect Project Z?
Oh, I think we'll wait until at least tomorrow to tell you that. No, it's going to be a wait, but absolutely, Project Z. There will be one.
After years of work and a relentless final push, Jak and Daxter launched on December 4th, 2001 for the PlayStation 2, making not just a new IP, but the beginning of a new era for Naughty Dog.
You may recognize Naughty Dog as the folks behind that famous Bandicoot, star of the Crash series. Now they're working hard to make stars of Jak and his buddy Daxter. I'm going to get a little FaceTime with Jak and discuss his rise to fame. I can't seem to find the receptionist, but Jak's gotta be around here somewhere. Excuse me, I'm here to see Jak. He's expecting me?
Jak who?
Jak. From Jak and Daxter?
Yeah, you might want to try the conference room down the hall.
Have you guys seen Jak? I had a couple quick questions for him.
Jak is just a CG character, but I can tell you anything you want to know.
He's a poly, not a CG character. What's up with you fleshies anyway? Always trying to claim credit for our hard work.
Right. Jak's just a little busy right now. But there's some folks in the studio who might be able to answer your questions.
Well, after wandering around the set for a while, I tracked down a few members of the Naughty Dog team who were quite helpful. They told me a little bit about the adventures of Jak and Daxter.
Jak and Daxter is about a couple of friends. They have a tendency to get into a lot of trouble together, and there's one particular time at the start of the game where the two of them are exploring a forbidden place called Misty Island.
As Jak and Daxter are exploring Misty Island, they come upon a little vial of something they don't know what it is. Daxter throws it to Jak. Jak catches it, and as he catches it, it starts glowing. This is part of the magical force Jak has.
Daxter accidentally got transformed into this kind of rodent form, something he's not very happy about. The two of you are kind of poking around the world, trying to figure out what they can do to change Daxter back into a human.
The adventure begins with Jak and Daxter running back to the sage, who's a mentor of theirs, in the village that they grew up in, and saying, "What can we do?" And he says, "Well, there's only one person I know of that might even be able to help you. He lives far to the north, and you're going to have to go find him."
Wow, this eco sounds like some powerful stuff. What the heck is it? And where did it come from?
Eco is an energy force that runs through the planet. There are many different varieties. There's blue eco, and green eco, and yellow eco, and red eco. And each one of these different kinds of eco give you different kinds of powers to the game, and you have to learn how to use the eco to your advantage.
We have dark eco, which acts as a catalyst for all the other ecos. Like blue eco, by itself, you might have some sparks, you'd have static electricity rubbing your feet on the floor or whatever, right? You mix some dark eco in there and you've got a thunderstorm, millions of volts and just incredible power.
So, Jak and Daxter leave their village and set off to find an antidote to turn Daxter back into his human form.
I'm actually in Sandover Village, which is where you start the game. There's a bunch of huts behind me, as you can see. Those huts are the dwelling place of a lot of the villagers that you'll meet when you first start the game. And all of these villagers generally have something that they want you to do for them, and you can do these quests and tasks and get a power cell in exchange. One particular example is the sculptor in Sandover Village has lost his muse. She's run away to Misty Island. She's a little furry creature. And so when you get to Misty Island, you'll see the muse running around. So if you catch the muse and bring it back to the sculptor will give you a power cell.
Oh, my muse! You saved her! Oh, you really are the best. Here, take this power cell. I won't need it now that I have my inspiration back.
Well, that sounds simple enough. What else are those two going to be doing?
There's a tremendous number of different tasks in the game. Some are incredibly simple, like just find a little hidden place and collect a reward. Others are woven across a number of different levels. A specific example of these tasks would be in the first village. The mayor is complaining that the village has no power anymore because the eco power beam from the jungle is broken. And so you have to go into the jungle and discover that the evil lurkers have diverted the power beam into their machine, and then you have to realign the beam towers all across the jungle to connect it back to the village.
Jak and Daxter face a ton of enemies in the game, like these nasty lurkers who are constantly in their face. But be careful, they're a lot smarter than they look.
They're actually quite intelligent. So for example, in many cases, if you come to a gap in a cliff and you jump it, they'll jump it and keep chasing you.
But let's face it, Jak would not stand a chance against all those lurkers without a little help from Samos Hagai, the Green Sage, and his daughter Kayra.
Well, one of my favorite characters is actually the Green Sage, Samos. Samos is sort of your classic wise man, although instead of the typical nice, kindly old man, he's this really crotchety old guy, yells at you a lot. He's always saying things like, "Why haven't you done this yet?" So it sort of adds a element of sarcastic humor to the game.
Fine, fine. Adventure away then. And while you're out adventuring, why don't you make yourself useful?
Hey, baby. What do you say you and I go cruising on this A-Grav Zoomer?
Kira is Jak's mentor, the Sage's very cute daughter. She's not your typical kind of teenage girl. Instead, she's in there in the racer machine shop in their hut, tinkering in the garage, building this A-Grav Zoomer device. She's determined to really get them working.
Great! You have the 18 cells needed to power my heat shield.
The Naughty Dog team spent a ton of time working on the details of the game to get it looking as good as they can, and it shows. All the work has really paid off, especially in the animations.
We've created kind of a unique system for blending different animations to create smooths between what would be two totally separate animations in most other games now. I'll give you an example of this. If you're running along, you may be halfway in speed between a walk and a run. Well, what our game will do is it'll take the walk animation, it'll take the run animation, and it'll evenly blend between them to create a new frame that represents where your feet would be if you're running at that speed. And if you jump, it'll blend all of those things into the jump and create a new unique frame of animation that represents exactly what you'd be at that time. And what that ends up creating is not infinite, but a humongous number of possibilities, all of which, every single frame, are created just to get the right animation to make him smoothly move in and out of every one of his frames. And that's truly unique.
Smooth moves alone mean nothing unless you've got the look to back it up, and these two definitely have the look.
The character design process for this game was very challenging for us because we actually have now the capability of creating characters that we always wanted to see on either a video game or an animated feature. And because of that, the level of detail that Jak has is about 6 times greater than what the level of detail that Crash had.
So for example, Jak himself is more polygons and is more detailed than the entire screen was in a single frame of Crash. Just Jak.
It's not only the main characters that look great, but the entire world really comes to life. The team at Naughty Dog have truly pushed the power of PlayStation 2, creating an absolutely amazing-looking world for Jak and Daxter to explore. One of the things that really sparked my interest is the particle system.
The particle system is a very handy thing. It deals with little tiny chunks of stuff that you can sort of assemble together into making a flame or a piece of smoke or maybe ripples or rain.
All of the places in the game are really cool. All I can say is, wow, this new world really shows off the power of PlayStation 2.
One of my favorite visual effects in the game is when you kind of battle your way up to the top of the tower over there, the one with the rotating disc on it. You can then look down across several levels worth of kind of coastline, and you see your village and the beach, and look on towards the end of the game, and you get this awesome sense of like space, and it's just very dramatic.
Each of these areas are pretty impressive in their own right, but you're going to be amazed at how big and cool this world really is.
One of the things we set out to do with Jak and Daxter is to create a giant contiguous world. What that means is once you've actually started playing the game, you'll never have to stop and wait for a load time. You'll never have to pause as you're playing to wait to go into a different area. And the camera never really cuts to say, oh, okay, you were in the forest, but now you're in a cave, so it's a totally different situation. You just walk in and out of doorways, or you walk across a bridge and you're in a new area.
I learned a ton about the game from Jason and his team at Naughty Dog, but I still didn't get to meet Jak. So I decided that instead of waiting for the game, I'd wait for him. Is Jak here yet?
Nope.
Is Jak here yet?
No.
Is Jak here
No.
yet? Is Jak here yet?
No.
Is Jak here yet?
No.
Here's a quick spoiler alert as I'm about to tell the story behind Jak and Daxter, the Precursor Legacy. Now, if you're not a fan of spoilers, please advance this video to the gameplay overview section as seen on the timeline below. Let's dive into this. The game opens up with narration from Samos the Sage, the Green Sage, who reflects on the ancient precursors, their monoliths, and the mysterious power known as Eco. He speaks on this long search for answers and hints at a prophecy that may involve 2 unlikely heroes, Jak and Daxter. As the narration fades, we quickly cut to Daxter scolding Jak for ignoring Samos's warning not to travel to Misty Island. Naturally, they go anyway. On Misty Island, the duo witness Goal and his sister Maya rallying their forces. The 2 Dark Eco Sages actively searching for precursor artifacts and Eco with plans to evade nearby villages. While exploring the island, things go horribly wrong. Daxter falls into a pool of Dark Eco, and instead of killing him, it mutates him into an Otzel, half otter, half weasel. Panicked and confused, the duo rushes back home to seek answers. Samos the Sage does not take the news well.
I was... Don't tell me! Instead of heeding my wisdom, the 2 of you went mucking around in the only place that I told you not to go, Misty Island.
That's right, and then...
And, Daxter, you finally took a much-needed bath, but in a bathtub filled with Dark Eco.
Look, old man, are you gonna keep yapping, or are you gonna help me out of this mess?
I'm gonna keep yapping, because in my professional opinion, the change is an improvement. And besides, I couldn't help you if I wanted to.
What?
There's only one person who has studied Dark Eco long enough to have a chance at returning you to your previous form. Carl Acheron, the Sage. But he lives far to the north. Far, far to the north. Nobody has spoken to him in ages. I would teleport you there, but I can't do that either. None of the 3 sages that maintain the other teleporter gates have seen fit to turn their ends on for quite a while. The only other way north is by foot through the Fire Canyon, but its volcanic soil is hot enough to melt precursor metal. You can't just walk through it.
But you could fly over it if you had a zoomer equipped with a heat shield. I just happen to be working on such a thing at this very moment. All I would need is 20 power cells to give it enough energy to withstand the canyon's heat. Isn't that right, Daddy?
Yes, Kira, that might work. But where are a boy and a half going to get 20 power cells?
From the villagers. Most of them have a power cell or two stashed away somewhere. And even if they aren't willing to just give them away, greasing their palms with a few precursor orbs should do the trick. And I bet there are even more of them out in the wilds just waiting for some brave adventurer to find.
Well, we've got the brave adventurer at least.
Brave adventurer? You two couldn't find your way out of the village without training. Before you do anything else, you better go through the warp gate and get some practice on Geyser Rock.
We won't find any more of that dark gooey eco stuff, will we? 'Cause I'd hate to fall in again and turn into you.
Get in there before I turn you both into ferns.
After laying into them for ignoring his warnings, Samos explains that dark eco corruption is no small matter, and that Gold and Maya pose a serious threat to the entire world. Jak and Daxter are given their first real directive: help restore balance by collecting power cells and precursor orbs scattered across the land. Their journey begins at Geyser Rock, where the duo receives basic training before returning to Samos' hut. While the Green Sage acknowledges their progress, he makes it clear that the challenge ahead will be far more dangerous than anything they faced so far. From there, Jak and Daxter set off across the world, helping villagers and solving problems wherever they go. They unclog eco collectors, herd yak cows back into their pens, recover stolen artifacts, and gather precursor ores, often needing 90 at a time to unlock progress. Their travels take them from sandy beaches to the forbidden jungle, where they assist a fisherman by catching a massive amounts of fish, earning passage back to Misty Island. There, they discover the dark eco pool responsible for Daxter's transformation, reinforcing the danger of Gold and Maya's experiments. As the duo collect power cells, they eventually meet Kira, Samos' daughter and a gifted mechanic. With enough power cells, Kira allows them to use her zoomer, granting access beyond Fire Canyon and pushing the adventure forward. Their next destination is Rock Village, home of the Blue Sage. But when Jak and Daxter arrive, they find the village has been ransacked. The Blue Sage's hut has been completely destroyed.
It looks like the Blue Sage threw a party.
Oh my! Rock Village is on fire!
One heck of a party.
No, I mean Rock Village is being bombarded with flaming boulders!
Upon arriving at Rock Village, Jak and Daxter quickly learn that progress here comes at a cost. Power cells are scattered throughout the village, often locked behind favors and challenges, and deals with its residents. The duo meets gamblers, takes part in a high-speed race for a power cell, and encounter a self-proclaimed warrior, once a hero who admits defeat at the hands of a massive lurker named Claw. Ashamed of his loss, the warrior offers access to Bogey Swamp and the levitation device, but only if Jak and Daxter can collect 90 orbs. With the access granted, the journey continues through Boggy Swamp and onward to the Lost Precursor City, where the scope of the Precursor's technology becomes clearer. As the duo gather power cells across these regions, they eventually reach a total of 45 power cells, enough to activate the machine the Blue Sage had originally been working on, lifting a massive boulder blocking the mountain pass. But the path forward isn't unchallenged. At the mountain pass, Jak and Daxter come face to face with Claw, the same giant lurker that defeated the warrior. Against the odds, the duo manages to defeat him, proving just how far they've come as heroes. Immediately after, they must race through Mountain Pass on a zoomer, competing against lurkers toward the finish line. If you don't win the race, it'll trigger a final act of chaos. The lurkers slam a plunger, detonating the dynamite planted throughout the pass and blasting it to Kingdom Come. But getting there first avoids that entirely. With the path cleared, Jak and Daxter finally reach the Red Sage's hut.
Parts in those things. Holy yakkow! The Red Sage's lab looks worse than the Blues.
Well, it definitely looks as though there's been a struggle here.
I'd hardly call it struggle. Would you, dear sister?
Certainly not. The Red Sage gave up with so little effort. No fun at all.
Gall? Is that you? You've finally gone off the deep end, eh? And Maya, I told you the Dark Eco would affect you both. Nobody ever listens to old Samos. What have you two done with the Blue and Red Sages?
Don't worry about your colorful friends, you old fool. They're perfectly safe in our citadel. Our special guests.
They have graciously agreed to help us on a little project.
You were wrong, Samos. Dark Eco can be controlled. We've learned its secrets, and now we can reshape the world to our liking.
You can't control Dark Eco by itself. Even the precursors.
Until now, we've had to scrape by with what little Dark Eco we could find near the surface. But soon, we will have access to the vast stores of Dark Eco hidden deep underground.
Not the silos.
Yes, the silos. They will be opened, and all the Dark Eco of the world will be ours.
But that's impossible. Only a precursor robot.
Oh, don't look so upset, Samos. We've got big plans for you.
Wait a minute! That was Gall? The same Gall who's supposed to change me back? Gall is the guy trying to kill us? I'm doomed.
We may all be doomed. If they open the silos, the Dark Eco will twist and destroy everything it touches. We simply must get to their citadel to stop them.
The fastest way there is through the lava tube at the bottom of this crater. A few more power cells and your Zoomer's heat shield should get you across the lava safely.
All right, my boy. You know what to do. Take the flea bag and go round up more power cells.
Here, the truth behind the growing danger is revealed. Now fully aware of the stakes and the importance of their mission, the duo push forward. They collect additional power cells from Snowy Mountain and Spider Cave, eventually reaching 72 power cells, allowing Kiera to modify the Zoomer for passage through Lava Tube. At the end of the Lava Tube, Jak meets Kiera, who brings devastating news. Samos the Sage has been kidnapped.
Hey! Where's old Short, Green, and Wrinkly?
This is terrible. Father is missing. I think Gall and Maya may have kidnapped him as well.
Relax, sweetheart. I got everything under control.
Under control? Lurker armies continue to grow across the land. The sages have been kidnapped. Gall and Maya have gathered enough eco to complete their terrible plan. And to stop them, you're going to have to fight your way through their citadel.
Yeah. That about sums it up.
You've got to rescue my father before it's too late. And Jak, be careful.
Yeah, we will be.
Jak and Daxter storm the Citadel and discover the truth. Gall and Maya have captured all the sages, draining their energy to power a massive precursor robot. Samos explains that the sages' combined power is being used to activate the machine, and the only way to stop it is to free them and break the robot's protective shield. The duo spring into action, rescuing each of the sages. Once freed, Samos congratulates Jak and Daxter, but warns them that breaking the shield is only the first step. Gall and Maya emerge, declaring the duo's efforts as meaningless as the robot begins to awaken. With the shield down, Samos tells Jak that the final task falls to him alone. Jak and Daxter take the elevator to the top of the Citadel to face the precursor robot head-on. During the battle, Jak unlocks the power of White Eco, channeling his energy to destroy the robot once and for all. With the machine defeated, Gall and Maya's plan collapses, the sages are saved, and the world is finally safe.
it looks like I may have been too hard on you boys. You do have what it takes to be heroes.
But Daxter, now we can't change you back.
Don't worry about me, baby. You know what they say. Big things come in small packages.
Jak, you have an incredible talent for channeling Eco. Samos, you may have been right about this one after all.
And Kira, without your help and ingenuity, none of this would have been possible. Perhaps we've found another sage now that Gaul and Maya are lost. Yes, Gaul and Maya. The Dark Eco probably destroyed them. Probably.
Ah, who cares? Bring 'em on! We can take 'em again, right, Jak? I said, right, Jak? Wow! Put it on ice, big guy!
Now that we've gone through the entire story, it's time to dive into the gameplay of Jak and Daxter. There are a lot of ways to break this down, but since we're in the middle of the Naughty Dog takeover, it makes sense to start with something familiar. Over the course of this series, we've seen how Naughty Dog constantly pulls inspiration from other franchises, but what's interesting here is how Jak and Daxter also borrows from Naughty Dog's own history, especially Crash Bandicoot. At a base level, the Crash DNA is easy to spot. Jak inherits several movement ideals that longtime Crash fans will immediately recognize. The most obvious example is the double jump, letting Jak defy the laws of physics just like Crash did in Warped. What's impressive here is that while Crash took 3 games to learn that ability, Jak has it right out the gate. Some familiar button combinations also make the jump over. Jak's dive feels very familiar to Crash's belly flop from Crash 2, giving him a fast and aggressive way to hit enemies below. Another returning move is the high jump, where Jak crouches before leaping higher than usual. Again, something Crash players will feel right at home with. Even crawling returns, mapped to the shoulder buttons. While it's probably the least used move in the entire game, it's still a nice callback to Naughty Dog's platforming roots. But where Jak and Daxter really separates itself is how much more Jak has compared to Crash. Unlike Crash, Jak has dedicated melee attacks. Jak has a dedicated melee attack, starting with the simple punch. This could be charged into a forward-moving charge attack, giving combat a stronger sense of momentum. Jak can also perform a power punch that launches straight upward, distinct from the more angled L-shaped knight move uppercut motion you expect in other games. The difference might seem subtle, but it gives Jak a much wider range of vertical control during combat. Another major evolution is swimming. Jak can swim underwater, something Crash could never do. But it comes with tension. In certain areas, a lurking predator can appear out of nowhere, triggering a heartbeat sound as Jak is moments away from being eaten. It's a simple mechanic, but it adds urgency and danger to which would otherwise be calm exploration sections. Taken together, Jak's moveset feels like Naughty Dog taking everything they learned from Crash and expanding it. The controls are tighter, movement feels more fluid, and combat is more involved without overwhelming the player. This isn't just Crash with a new coat of paint. It's the foundation of a new generation of Naughty Dog's platforming. One of the most important mechanics in Jak and Daxter is Eco. It's not just a power-up system. It's woven directly into the world, the story, and the gameplay itself. Throughout the adventure, Jak encounters 6 different types of Eco, each serving a unique purpose. Let's break them down one by one. Green Eco represents Jak's life force. Unlike older platformers where a single hit meant instant death, Jak can take up to 4 hits before going down. Green Eco restores that health and can be found scattered throughout the world as small floating green orbs. Later in the game, green Eco vents appear, and these are especially powerful. When Jak stands in a green Eco vent, he gains a brief period of near invincibility, similar to having 3 Witch Doctor masks activated at once. For a short time, nothing can hurt him, making green Eco both a defensive tool and a lifesaver in tougher encounters. Then you have blue Eco. This is all about kinetic energy. When activated, it dramatically increases Jak's movement speed and allows him to interact with the environment in unique ways. Doors open, platforms activate, he can high jump, and nearby crates and chests shatter simply by Jak being in the area. Blue Eco also has a magnetic effect, pulling nearby orbs towards Jak, this is especially helpful for collecting orbs that would be otherwise difficult or dangerous to reach. While piloting the Zoomer, Blue Eco provides a speed boost, reinforcing his role as the game's mobility force energy source. Now we have Red Eco, which grants Jak a temporary offensive power boost. While active, his attacks become significantly stronger, allowing him to take down enemies in a single hit. This eco is designed for combat-heavy sections, letting Jak power through enemies that would normally take multiple attacks to defeat. Now we have Yellow Eco, which introduces range combat. With Jak, he can fire balls of energy at enemies, switches, and crates. The game even allows for first-person aiming while using Yellow Eco, giving players more precision during combat. This ability becomes especially useful in areas like Spider Cave, where distance and positioning matter far more than brute force. And now we have Dark Eco, the most dangerous and nearly important form of eco in the game. It's a substance that kicks off the entire story, transforming Jak and fueling Gold and Maya's experiments. Dark Eco appears in pools and crates throughout the world, particularly on Misty Island and Spider Cave. Unlike other eco types, Dark Eco offers no benefit to Jak. It represents corruption, instability, and destruction, serving as a constant reminder of what's at stake. Now, the final and rarest form of eco is White Eco, which Jak only uses once in the entire game during the final battle. White Eco is considered the purest form of eco, embodying healing, balance, restoration, and purification. According to the game's lore, White Eco was created by combining all other eco types. Now that we talked about eco, it's time to focus on the game's main form of currency, power cells. Power cells function very similar to crystals in Crash Bandicoot. You cannot progress through the story without them, but at the same time, you don't need to collect all 101 power cells to finish the game. Progression is gated, but not absolute. Certain areas of the map require a specific number of power cells to unlock. Early on, you'll need 20 power cells to use the Zoomer, while later areas like Mountain Patch require 45 power cells. These thresholds naturally pace the adventure and encourage exploration rather than linear progression. Where Jak and Daxter adds challenge isn't how many power cells you need, but how you earn them. Power cells are rewarded in a variety of ways. Sometimes Jak completes a task for an NPC like retrieving a missing muse or locating a hidden power cell tucked away somewhere in the environment. Every major area also contains 7 scout flies, usually hidden inside red and silver boxes. Finding all 7 rewards a power cell, and these often require careful exploration, platforming precision, or simply knowing where to look. Another common method involves precursor orbs. In many areas, Jak can outright buy power cells, usually costing 90 or 120 orbs depending on who you're dealing with. Some villagers like miners sell multiple power cells this way, meaning you might need hundreds of orbs in a single area. In some levels, there are also oracles, each offering 2 power cells for 120 orbs apiece. And here's where the design becomes divisive. On one hand, the system encourages exploration and rewards thorough play. On the other hand, some areas lean too heavily into buying your way through progression. One level in particular revolves almost entirely around collecting orbs to purchase power cells. Between miners and oracle and scout flies, you're looking at around 600 orbs needed to fully clear it. From a gameplay standpoint, that can feel less like discovery and more like padding. Still, power cells matter, especially for completionists. If you collect 100 out of the game's 101 power cells, you unlock the secret ending, which directly sets up the next game in the series.
Holy yakko!
What could that be?
Wow! It's an ancient precursor door. It looks like it will only open if we fill all 100 holes with power cells.
Oh boy, here we go again! Wow! What is it?
It's so beautiful.
By the precursors.
Now let's talk about how the game actually plays. As a PlayStation 2 title, Jak and Daxter marks a major shift for Naughty Dog. Gone are the fixed or semi-fixed camera angles. Instead, the dual analog sticks allow for one stick movement and the other one for full camera control. While this is a standard in today's form of gaming, this was the first Naughty Dog game to fully adopt this camera system, and it shows clear evolution from the studio's PlayStation era design philosophy. At its core, Jak and Daxter is still a platformer, so expect platforming depths, mistimed jumps, enemy knockback, attacks that send Jak flying off the ledge. These moments happen often. If you played Crash Bandicoot in the late 90s, you'll feel like you're at home in this regard. The game's primary enemies are lurkers, and they come in many variations, each introducing different attack patterns and environmental hazards. While most encounters stick to traditional platforming combat, the game occasionally switches things up. One major example is the zoomer. Jak uses a grav zoomer to reach new areas of the map, and certain sections introduce additional pressure, timers, environmental hazards, or overheating mechanics. In some areas, staying in the danger zone too long causes the zoomer to overheat and explode, forcing players to balance speed with precision. These shifts help break the platforming and keep the gameplay away from becoming too repetitive. Overall, Jak and Daxter blends familiar platforming ideas with new systems that feel right at home on the PlayStation 2. It doesn't reinvent the genre, but it expands it in ways that clearly point towards where Naughty Dog was headed next. Upon release, Jak and Daxter: The Precursor Legacy was met with universal acclaim from critics. According to Metacritic, the game landed a strong 90 out of 100, immediately placing it among the PlayStation 2's highest regarded platformers. From the jump, expectations were high, and for many outlets, Jak and Daxter exceeded them. Critics frequently position the game alongside genre-defining classics. Reviewers praised it not as a great platformer, but one that could stand shoulder to shoulder with Nintendo and Rare's best work. Several publications even went as far as to say that Jak and Daxter surpassed titles like Super Mario 64 and Banjo-Kazooie, not because it reinvented the genre, but because it refined nearly every element with an extreme polish. Where the game truly earned its praise was on a technical level. Reviewers consistently highlighted the game's vibrant environments, massive draw distance, and most importantly, its complete lack of load times. The seamless world design was widely seen as a technical benchmark for the PlayStation 2. Critics marveled at the ability to stand on a high point and see the entire region stretching into the distance, reinforcing the illusion of a fully connected living world. Environmental detail was another standout. Real-time lighting, weather effects, heat haze, and richly textured ruins gave a visual identity that felt closer to a high-quality animated film than a traditional platformer. Character animation was singled out as exceptional, with expressive body language and facial animations that many reviewers compared directly to Disney and Pixar productions. That cinematic presentation carried into the game's structure. The interconnected world design was widely praised for making progression feel persistent and meaningful. Tasks completed stayed completed. Areas changed over time. Unlike earlier platformers where levels reset every time you enter them, Jak and Daxter gave players a sense that they were genuinely shaping the world as they moved through it. That said, critics were not blind to the game's limitations. While the gameplay was praised and polished, responsive, and enjoyable, many reviewers agreed that it leaned heavily on familiar platforming conventions. Collectathons, fetch quests, and simple objectives made up a bulk of the experience. For some critics, this familiarity was confronting. For others, it held the game back from true innovation. The lack of traditional boss battles was also a common criticism, with some reviewers noting that only a handful of major encounters made the adventure feel less cinematic than expected. Navigation occasionally drew criticism as well, particularly the absence of warp points within large areas, which could make backtracking feel tedious. Controls, however, were almost universally praised. Jak's movement was frequently compared to the Mario feel, tight, intuitive, and fun by default. The camera system earned strong marks as well, though a few outlets found it inconsistent in tight spaces. Narratively, critics viewed the story as serviceable but shallow. It existed primarily to justify exploration and progression, rather than to tell a deep or complex tale. While the world's precursor mythology intrigued viewers, most agreed it wasn't fully explored. Reactions to Daxter's humor were mixed, with some finding him entertaining and others feeling his jokes wore thin. Audio reception followed a similar pattern. Voice acting and sound design were widely praised for bringing the world to life, while the soundtrack itself received a more divided response. Some critics found it atmospheric, others largely unmemorable. Despite those criticisms, the overall verdict was clear. Jak and Daxter: The Precursor Legacy was viewed as a technical showcase, a genre benchmark, and one of the PlayStation 2's strongest early exclusives. It didn't radically reinvent platformers, but it perfected the formula in a way that few gamers before it had managed. And commercially, that acclaim translated into success. By the mid-2000s, Jak and Daxter has sold over 2 million copies in the United States alone, earned multiple awards, and helped solidify Naughty Dog's transition into Sony's first-party elite. For critics, refinement was enough. For some players, it wasn't. And that gap between critical praise and player expectation will only become more important as the series moved forward. Now it's time to talk about my own personal experience with Jak and Daxter: The Precursor Legacy. Replaying this game was still a fun experience, but I'll be honest, while it's nowhere near as difficult as Crash Bandicoot, there are moments where the challenge definitely spikes. Some of the platforming depths can feel cheap, missing a jump by inches, spinning just to stick the landing, or grabbing onto a moving platform only to fall to your death anyway. These moments can be frustrating. That said, I still had a great time. My biggest issue, if I'm being real, is a reliance on paying your way forward with precursor orbs. That's where the game falls a little flat for me. Having entire stretches where progress comes down to grinding orbs instead of solving problems or mastering platforming can feel lazy from a gameplay standpoint. But outside of that, I genuinely enjoyed the music, the atmosphere, and the overall vibe of the world. Jak and Daxter feels like the start of something new, and with innovation always comes growing pains. Because of that, I can't be too hard on the game for how it starts out, especially knowing where the series goes next. In hindsight, this entry aged differently compared to later Jak games. It's still remembered fondly and it's still fun, but it's clearly a foundation rather than the final form. And that's okay. If you're looking to play the game today, you still have options. You can download it digitally and experience the PS2 version, but honestly, the best way to play it now is through the Jak and Daxter HD collection on the PlayStation 3. That's how I played it for this video. It runs smoother, looks cleaner, and the controller feels better in your hands. And in a time where game preservation matters more than ever, having access to this version is important. At the end of the day, this game has highs and lows. The highs are the gameplay and world design. The lows at times are the platforming and progression pacing. But did any of it make me hate the game? Not even close. I still loved revisiting it. And when I see people in the comments talk about going through annual playthroughs, I get it. I can absolutely see myself returning to this game regularly. Sure, there were a few rage quit moments, but that's part of the journey. Games are meant to be fun and challenging. If it were too easy, we forget about it after one playthrough. Jak and Daxter strikes a solid balance. So, if you enjoy platformers or want a genuinely fun game experience, the first Jak and Daxter is absolutely worth your time. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you for tuning in once again. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed the video, giving it a thumbs up and some hype goes a long way for smaller channels like mine. Next week, we're jumping straight into Jak II, because this entire month is dedicated to the Jak and Daxter series. And if you want to stay up to date with the rest of the Naughty Dog Takeover, hitting that subscribe button will keep you locked in. I'm aiming for 15,000 subscribers this year, and I'd love for you to be a part of that journey. If you're feeling generous, you can always buy me a cup of coffee. The link is in the description. With that said, this is the Retro Phantom, signing out.